Well, I'm a man of my word. This is it. This is the beginning of one of the greatest animes ever made. I'm finding it hard to introduce this video series, this project, well, let's just call it a mission. I've already made an exhaustive video detailing why anyone who isn't familiar with this show should give it a chance. I stand by everything I said in that video, and honestly, it works perfectly as a primer for this video series. Though this video will be quite different from that video. Instead of doing a broad strokes overview of the entire series, this video will be a blow-by-blow, scene-by-scene analysis of every episode in Season 1. I know that is a dauntingly tall order and will require several hundred hours of study, research, and editing. Lots of editing. But I think it'll be worthwhile. I hope it'll be worthwhile anyway. Mostly I just want to do the series justice by covering every aspect of it that I can. There's truly a lot to appreciate, consider, and discover in this amazing show, and I will no doubt enjoy every minute of it, regardless of how long it'll end up taking me to complete it, which is partially why I waited so long to actually start this video series up. I wanted to give everybody time to watch the entire series before diving into a deep analysis. So if you haven't already, go watch the whole first season, then come watch this video. Or at least watch this episode. This is also where I'll stop pulling my punches and highlight the flaws and failings of the show, because while it is quite excellent, it's not perfect. I've never said it was perfect, just one of the best ever. There are problems with it, and I have a lot of criticisms that I will make sure to articulate as best I can when we encounter issues. Speaking of problems, criticisms, and general badness, I'm gonna be comparing this Sailor Moon anime, lovingly referred to by fans as classic, to that other Sailor Moon anime, Crystal. To be frank, I'm gonna trash Crystal and establish the classic anime as the greatest version of this story in every aspect. Because, well, it is the greatest version of this story. Crystal is just embarrassing by comparison. And I know I've already got a lot of naysayers prepping their counter arguments in the comments, and to that I say, bring it on. I welcome the challenge. However, I ask that you stick around for my arguments in favor of Classic and against Crystal before you let yours rip. Also, limited to episode 1 for now, because the first episodes in particular are very stark contrasts in quality. Don't you worry, we'll have plenty of time to get to the other episodes later. But yeah, I'm not gonna treat Crystal as gently as I did in the Why You Should Watch vid. Prepare yourselves, Crystal stans. It's gonna get ugly. And honestly, I find the lack of content for this series genuinely disturbing. It's seriously underrated nowadays, and the fandom is, from what I gather, pretty dormant. I'd like to stir them up a bit, revitalize them, you know. Heck, I'd just like to meet more of you guys. I've got no one in my corner of the world that understands the greatness of this series, which sucks, but hey, what can you do? Anyway, this video will be the first of many, so detailed and exhaustive that watching them will be like watching the show alongside me, a mega Sailor Moon weeb that knows arguably too much about the series. I like the idea of this series being a ride I take with all of you to not only enjoy the show, but explore the subtext, symbolism, and the sheer genius of its writing, as well as appreciating its beauty from an artistic, musical, and filmmaking perspective. A dense ride, but hopefully an entertaining and informative one. As I said, the Why You Should Watch video serves as my best introduction to the series itself. This short, descriptive prelude is simply what you can expect this video series to be. So okay, that's the series as a whole. But what about this particular season? Well, season 1 is a very different season from all the others for obvious reasons. It's where things are introduced, established, and things start to take shape from the base that is the manga. The manga was revolutionary in its day and a thing of beauty to this day. There are a lot of things to appreciate about it, make no mistake, and I appreciate it as the foundation of this great anime, contrary to popular belief. However, it squanders a lot of potential and fumbles a lot of its execution, on top of several baffling writing choices. And the pacing, good lord, the pacing. It's breakneck, unforgivingly fast. I touched on this in the Why You Should Watch vid, but the manga was in desperate need of slowing down. Development and cultivating investment in every facet. The creators of the classic anime recognized that need and set about building from the faulty foundation something even more excellent and revolutionary than the manga, which was being made concurrently. Thus, we have episode 1 that may seem like an overall faithful adaptation of Act 1, but as you'll soon see, there were very deliberate and necessary changes made right from the start. Changes that Crystal didn't make and suffered because of it. These changes are what defined the anime as the cream of the crop and definitive version of the Sailor Moon story, reaching greater heights than the manga could have ever hoped to reach, despite its growing pains. I know, quite the claim to make, right? Don't worry, I'll back it up. As I said, I'm struggling to really give this video a proper start. There's so much I'm excited for, so much to talk about, so much to gush about. Kinda like Thanksgiving dinner. All your favorites are here and perfectly cooked and seasoned, waiting for you to partake in that first glorious bite. It's awesome, but overwhelming all at once. Where do you start with all of this wonderfulness? But I guess, as always, the best place to start is the beginning. Not that beginning, the other beginning.
私、月のうさぎ、14歳中2。性格はちょっとおっちょこちょいで泣き虫かな。うさぎ、8時過ぎたわよ。
What I like about this scene is the chaoticness of it. There's so much energy and whimsy to it, which sets a precedent for what the show has in store. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. This is a really funny show. In the midst of all the drama, the action, and yes, even horror, there's a surplus of hilarity and levity like this that saves the show from taking itself too seriously. But the nature of that levity and joking is almost always exciting. Rather than just a mellow break from the more intense moments of the series, you get punchy and energetic comedy to keep your attention, even in the low tension moments of the story. That's fantastic in its simplicity. Beyond the simple humor elements though, there's a lot more to talk about. After all, it's the first scene of the first episode, and there's a lot it has to accomplish in order to convince the audience to stick with the story until the end. And it does that by telling us who our main character is in a natural way. Well, except for the short bit of exposition in the beginning, but I'll have more to say about that later down the line. For now, the exposition is unnecessary, absolutely, but it's not nearly as egregious as most opening expositions. Mainly because it isn't a long, drawn-out exposition dump. It's about our main character, and it focuses on her personality rather than her destiny or her lineage or whatever else. It's just a short introduction of who she is, which is completely unnecessary, but it gets out of the way quickly and doesn't come back for a very long time. It's so unnecessary because all the information is confirmed in the episode. We actually get to see her being a crybaby. We get to see her being clumsy. We get to see her acting like a 14-year-old girl. We even get to see more than just what is directly told to us. For one, she's kinda dumb. No, she's dumb. She has her moments, but on the whole, she's just not the brightest tool in the crayon box. Know what I'm saying?
うさぎちゃん、ブレイクっていうのは有名な詩人の名前だよ。詩人？ 何それそれって美味しいの最近流行ってるお菓子いやだからさ
天才ニュートン問題リンゴはなぜ木から落ちるのでしょう
なんでってそんなこと私に聞かないでリンゴに聞いてよ
バカバカ
わかった台風が来たからもう地球に引力があるからよタキシード仮面待って罠かもしれないわ普通罠だよねこれってでもあんたは単純だから真っ先に狙われるのよだって今調べるわ
セーラームーン
やっぱりほっとけないよちょっとセラム離してみんな気をつけてそいつはヨーマよほら見なさいよごめんなさい
セーラームーン愛してる
二度も同じ手に引っかかるようなおっぺけペンがいるもんですかって言ってる人だから引っかかるんじゃないのよって今度こそ本物だからどうするのよほらあって変だどうせ私は落ちこぼれでペチャパイで慌てんぼうで最低ですよ悪口を言われるのは慣れっこさんなんだから
なんちゅう性格してる疑惑
褒められちゃったのかしら
She's also lazy, or at the very least lackadaisical. She's not cool under pressure at all. She is sorely dependent on her parents and is even a little ungrateful to her mother, which tells us she's a bit of a brat. Her mother's reaction to her antics tells us that this is who she's been for a while now, and perhaps there's a lack of faith in their relationship. Perhaps her mother has accepted that this is who her daughter is and has given up on trying to get her to be better. We'll see. The most important thing is we're introduced to Luna, and it's how this introduction is handled that really shows the writing skills on display. In Crystal, Usagi steps on Luna as she's rushing to school, and from there she takes an interest in her and takes off the bandage. But here, a group of children are picking on Luna and Usagi steps in to rescue her. The key here is what the story is showing us about our main character. In Crystal, she's clumsy and ditzy and pretty weird. I mean, who kisses an alley cat? What the fuck? But in Classic, she's brave, she's caring, she's bold, and she's selfless. We've got two distinctly different portrayals of the same character. One where she's just an off-putting weirdo, and one where she's brave, caring, and honorable, despite her many flaws. Meaning, Usagi is all of those less than desirable things I've listed previously, but in Classic, she's also got heroic potential. In Crystal, though, she's only those less than desirable things. There is no saving grace for her character. There is nothing positive or remarkably good about her yet. Classic shows us that Usagi could earn the title of hero and the responsibility that comes along with it. It shows us what Luna would need to see in order for her to return later and awaken her as Sailor Moon. It proves that Usagi, despite her flaws, is worthy to be our main character, and we're right to follow her story. Not because of some mysterious past life or destiny, but because of who she is as a person. And Classic does this faster and more elegantly than Crystal, which means, yeah, it's filler. The very first instance of filler, and it's used for such an impactful and meaningful change. Once again, this proves that the original story needed filler, because I can't imagine this scene without showing us these traits of Usagi before the episode really starts ramping up. This was such a smart choice, and it even establishes how Luna got her moon symbol covered up by the band-aid in the first place. It's genius, compared to Crystal, that has to go back and explain how a character like Luna somehow managed to get a band-aid on the one part of her body that she needs to... You know what? We'll get to it. Luna's mysterious introduction is also a really good moment. There's a slightly ominous vibe to her. The one shot of her taking a few steps toward Usagi, her reflection acts as a living shadow stretching toward Usagi. This, coupled with her unflinching gaze and Usagi's clear uncomfortableness with the situation, yet her inability to move. Plus, the ominous and wispy sound effects paints this moment as scary and foreboding, which is something striking about this first arc. It's not afraid to lean into horror territory. There's going to be even clearer evidence of this later, but it's interesting to note that the story is comfortable with terrifying the audience a little, along with making us laugh and eventually making us cry. It balances these tones wonderfully, not allowing things to snap from one thing to another thing instantly, giving the audience tonal whiplash. It's also important to note the ominous vibe from Luna because of what Sailor Moon and the Sailor Senshi duties will mean for Usagi going forward. Luna is a black cat that has crossed Usagi's path. As the old wives' tale goes, misfortune is sure to follow. But Usagi's inability to escape from Luna's gaze without the aid of outside interference is also quite telling. Perhaps Usagi is subconsciously drawn to what Luna represents, the Sailor Senshi world and adulthood. Something within her won't allow her to escape this calling so easily. More on that later. This wonderfully creepy and foreboding tone is entirely absent from Crystal's scene, replaced by low-level comedy and barely any mystery. I do like the fact that Usagi falls down the stairs as she tries to rush out the door. That's a nice touch that also helps support her clumsiness more than Classic's first scene does. I also like the added detail of Ikuko reading a newspaper about Sailor V. I do not, however, appreciate her overt line about wanting Usagi to be more like Sailor V. That's blunt force trauma writing. I like the reference to Sailor V, but come on. It's quite fast as well. We don't really get to absorb the mystery of Luna and what she could mean for the rest of the story, let alone symbolically or thematically. There's nothing to analyze here, no meaning to draw from this, nothing the creators want you to take away from this scene on a deeper level emotionally or intellectually. It's just here because two main characters meet for the first time, and now the scene is over. Whatever tone the scene is supposed to be setting isn't impactful at all. It's very subdued and forgettable, which is horrible because this is the scene that begins the story of Sailor Moon proper, the scene that introduces two major characters to each other, the scene that begins the intrigue for the entire series. Without this scene, there is no Sailor Moon, and we get nothing remotely interesting or substantial from it. Not even a passing recollection that a black cat has crossed her path, just nothing. Off to a great start, Crystal.
月のうさぎさん、また遅刻
ひどい。か弱い女の子を廊下に立たせるなんて。お腹すいた。朝食抜きだもんね。いただきます。
月野さん何してんの？そんなことだから赤点を取るんですよ。
30点。
そう。
もううさぎったら信じらんない。女の子のくせに早弁なんてさ。
うさぎさん、テストどうでした？
海のこの落ち込みを見りゃわかるでしょ。ダメだったに決まってるじゃない。あ、傷ついた？ごめん。
そんなに落ち込むことないですよ。僕も今回手を抜いたもんで100点取れなくて。まあテストなんてゲームですよ。
嫌なやつね。
Here we get introduced to some more characters that are vitally important to this season. Not because of their role in the plot, although they do have significant parts to play. They're important for Usagi's character and the world she inhabits. Generally speaking, Umino and Naru are important for dropping exposition whenever the story of a particular episode needs to be progressed. But deeper than that, they represent Usagi's normal life. Her relationship with them signifies where she's at with her graceful transformation, as the episode's title puts it. All I can tell you for now is pay attention to how much time Usagi spends with Naru and Umino as the season progresses. So, Initial thoughts on our new characters, Naru and Umino. Naru is clearly a normal girl like Usagi, albeit more responsible, more intelligent, and more in control of her life. She chastises Usagi, which is good, but she does so in a loving sort of way, which is great. She's also invested in how Usagi feels, evident by her trying to take Usagi's mind off of her bad grade. Though she appears to lack tact, seeing as she unintentionally tells Umino Usagi did horrible on her test and she should feel depressed because it was so bad. It's a hilarious moment that shows us more character, and that's always a plus. While she is a bit harsh to Umino, Naru appears to be an overall sweetheart. Umino is clearly an unassuming nerdy boy, but with less tact than Naru and possibly Usagi. He does seem to have a good heart, seeing as he's trying to help Usagi feel better about her grade, but he unintentionally proves how much better he is than her at schoolwork and comes off as though he's bragging when he says he gets a 95 without really trying and calling tests games. It's clearly not a good look, but his intentions are noble. He also shows that he's in the know, so to speak, when he reveals detailed information about Sailor V that Usagi doesn't know. And of course, he's socially awkward, which comes with the unassuming nerd identity. But I like how this awkwardness isn't tied to his crush on the girls. He's awkward because the conversation has drifted into strictly girly territory, and he's been suddenly left behind. It also has to do with Usagi displaying another character trait of hers, which is being incredibly simple-minded and a bit scatterbrained. She went from depressed to curious to ecstatic in a couple seconds flat, and that's shocking for him. And there's one other character that we meet in this scene, and that's the always hilarious Haruna Sensei. I know she's not named this episode, but that's her name. Haruna Sensei is just as goofy as the students she teaches, and she's always high-strung and a source of levity in the story. She appears to be overly strict, but honestly, Usagi is not a model student at all. She needs someone like Haruna Sensei to get on her case so she can be held accountable for her behavior. We'll get to see more of her in the coming episodes, but let me just say, I love her, and she is going to have some depth given to her later. Yes, even the teacher gets development. I know, amazing, right? Checking back over to Crystal, we've got more disappointment.
いただきます。
Oh, whoops. Whoopsie.
Instead of naturally showing us the characteristics of these characters and their relationship to Usagi, we are instead blasted in the face with bullet points about the characters. Remember when I said the narration at the beginning of Classic was not good, but at least it got out of the way quick? Yeah, Crystal decided to do the opposite of that, and it's terrible.
私好きなウサギ14歳中2自分でも思うけどちょっとドジで泣き虫これは担任の桜田春菜先生通称春田担当は英語これは親友のなるちゃんオタクの海のなるちゃんは綺麗で頭も良くておまけにお嬢なのよ
Honey, it would be super helpful if you shut up.
Why are we being spoon-fed bullet points on these characters instead of just existing in the moment and gleaning this information for ourselves? The writers are literally telling us, this is why you should care about these characters. This is who they are. Stop trying to think for yourself. Stop it. Here's all the information you need, idiot. Stop. Ugh. Then, in a bout of particularly stellar writing, we have both narration and Naru to point out that Umino is annoying, because the writers are really concerned that you won't comprehend how these characters view him if they don't spell it out for you. Twice. And suddenly we skip to lunchtime in a completely different location, and we're randomly talking about the robberies and Sailor V? Why? In the classic scene, Naru bringing up the robberies was to take Usagi's mind off of the bad grade she'd gotten, and the punishment she was recovering from by Haruna Sensei. The reason it was brought up indicates Naru's character and relationship to Usagi, as well as functioning as necessary exposition for the plot. And the scene transition from Usagi being chewed out and her friends consoling her outside was a natural point to cut away. That's why the bad grade is zoomed in on, because it works perfectly as a point to cut from and move to another location without it feeling jarring. But in Crystal, we just snap from random ass bullet point to random ass bullet point. Hooray! Look at the framing and backgrounds and the camera angles. It's all so flat and generic and lame. Just look at the difference. Look, striking and distinct colors, interesting angles and perspectives, refreshing locations that clearly contrast with each other. It's just so much better. Exposition is only for plot relevant details, and the characters simply behave like people, which establishes who they are, instead of it being shoved down our throats randomly. There's just no comparison. Classic Scene is phenomenally better than Crystal's. Look at how jarring this is. Naru's my best friend. Also, Umino is an annoying nerd. By the way, Naru is pretty and smart, and her family is rich. We're outside now, where we'll talk about the robberies. Also, there's a jewelry sale. Where's the through line between these story beats? There is none. Who are these random characters stealing away screen time from Usagi, Naru, and Umino? Characters that are clearly important to the story. Who are these randoms? Why are they making these comments? Again, Classic kept it simple and streamlined. Naru and Usagi make these comments, which reminds Naru of her mom's sale, and both girls excitedly make plans to go there after school, leaving Umino flustered at their sudden turn and slight endorsement of robbery. It naturally and logically follows from one thing to the other. We're given the right amount of information in the most intelligent ways. It's entertaining and engaging because we're paying attention to what's going on that much more when the information we need to progress through the story is given to us subtly, as opposed to ham-fisted and lazily. And who are these people? Let's just switch back to Classic. Good God. We've got some more sides to Usagi being revealed. Her simple-mindedness and scatterbrained nature we covered already. But she's also mischievous, a little self-sympathizing and self-justifying, and what we've been shown already has been given more detail, such as her low intelligence. See, I told you she's dumb. Her brat-like nature, and etc. Most importantly, we're shown that these negative traits have consequences, unlike so many other characters with flaws that never negatively affect their lives. Instead of listing flaws in a throwaway line and proceeding to ignore said flaws for the remainder of the story, she actually has to suffer from these negative traits. That might seem small or even obvious, but few stories featuring strong female characters stick with this simple aspect of writing. For example, in Captain Marvel, yes, I know, bear with me, we are told that Carol Danvers is too emotional and that she needs to control her emotions because they are a problem. But her emotions are quite subdued throughout the movie, and when they are uncontrolled, she ends up accomplishing her goals no problem. So, number one, there's no proof that her emotions are out of control or a negative thing for her, and number two, this flaw doesn't create problems for her, nor does it make her goals more difficult to accomplish, which makes this story really bad, in case that was still a question anyone had. But here, it's easy. Usagi is dumb, lackadaisical, irresponsible, and a bit of a brat. Of course her grades are going to be bad. Because her grades are bad, she will be punished, making her goal of avoiding punishment impossible at the moment. It may not seem like much, but the goal is set. The flaw is set. The consequences are clear, and therefore everything makes perfect sense. The last thing I want to mention is the information on Sailor V we're given. Sailor V is a popular figure in the series. A lot of people idolize her and respect her. This is going to be important for later in the season when we actually meet Sailor V and what that does for her character arc. For now, it's important to note that Usagi will have her own opinion of Sailor V this episode, and that's a bit of a loaded section. Sailor V being rumored to work with the police is a reference to the codename Sailor V manga, which features the exploits of Sailor V before the first chapter of the Sailor Moon manga. At the end of the story, Sailor V expressed interest in a part-time job at the Metropolitan Police Department. That's all. She's not currently working with the police. Though admittedly, that would be a pretty cool development for her character. And speaking of character, let's meet some more major characters for this arc.
幻の銀髄章はまだ見つからぬのか。大いなる我が支配者は十分なエナジーを求めておられる。銀髄章が手に入らぬのなら、まずは人間どものエナジーを捧げよう。
クイーンベリル様、その役目、このジェダイトにお任せ。すでに我が配下の妖魔モルガが人間どものエナジーを集めております。
お前に任そう、ジェダイト。
は。
Okay, I haven't mentioned it yet, but the music for this show, goodness me, it's so perfect. It captures the tone of the scenes perfectly while also being entertaining and memorable on its own. The eerie, spooky feel is distinct and clear without feeling campy, because once again, the show knows not to take itself too seriously. Even though this is very serious and these characters are villainous, it isn't too grandiose or overblown. The show juggles its tone expertly, and this is clear evidence of that. Compare that to the generic bland music of Crystal, and once again, the superior one is obvious. It's also clear evidence that the show is utilizing more horror elements. The textures of the environment alone remind me of the scariest classic Scooby-Doo episodes.
Where are you? We got some work to do now.
The entire location feels demonic, horrid, otherworldly, and the obscured and mysterious details of the scene makes it all the more unsettling. See, we know that these are the bad guys, and we know that this is the bad guy's lair. What isn't clear is just how many of them there are, how strong they are, or how organized and prepared they are to deal with Sailor Moon. We don't know how powerful Queen Beryl is, although she obviously has to be powerful to easily command this literal army of demons and monsters. We don't even know how they will enact their plans. All we're given is the what and the when. Not the where, not the how, not the why. Just the what and the when. And the when is now. Actually, it's previous to this meeting. The thing that might annoy people is the blatant exposition, but you have to understand this exposition isn't even giving us a lot of information. Think about it. What do we know by the end of the scene? We know Queen Beru is the boss, but there's another even bigger boss that requires a lot of energy. We know that the entire army is looking for the Phantom Silver Crystal, which is apparently full of incredible power. We know that humans are their prey, which strongly implies they aren't human, even though Queen Beru looks human. If she is human, there's clearly something wrong with her biology. Well, in the manga Yeah, that's nice. We're not talking about the manga though, so save it. We know that they possess strange powers, telekinesis and teleportation. We know that Jadeite is a person of status in the organization, and that his subordinates are called Yoma, which directly translates into bewitching demon, though monster or demon is the common translation. I lean towards demon myself, especially with the general look of Yoma having many things in common with Japanese demons. Plus, the ethereal nature of the Dark Kingdom and their plans to steal human life energy and prey on humans' desires, fears, and sins. Yeah, we're getting into demon and evil spirit territory as opposed to just standard monsters. The connections are clear when you lay it out. Regardless, that's a lot of information, but what can we even do with this information right now? All we can do is fear for our protagonist and hope that she can hurry up and get strong enough to beat them and find the Phantom Silver Crystal before they do. Yet we don't know how strong she would need to get in order to beat them. So there's still a lot of ambiguity and mystery here, which is what you lose 90% of the time when exposition is used. But this is clearly very different than normal exposition. Looking at our named villains, first we've got Queen Beru. She's got a very commanding presence, and she's quite powerful because she's in charge of this army, and that's all we know about her right now. Then there's Jadeite, who is obviously a higher up member of the organization, so his presence has a commanding air to it, and he is powerful. He seems loyal and confident, and frankly, a stereotypical evil minion. Unfortunately, that's about all we can glean from these two characters. There is more that will be revealed later, but Not much. We'll get into it then. Okay, I think I need to bring back Crystal for contrast and skip ahead in the episode a little for context. Interestingly enough, Crystal isn't monumentally terrible here. Just mostly terrible. We learn even less than the classic scene, so automatically I'm sure some of you are thinking, it's better. Well, not really. Jadeite is nice and vague about the master he serves, which could be Queen Beru or the one she serves. He tells the Yoma to bring him the Phantom Silver Crystal, and it disappears, and that's it. Short, to the point, mysterious and vague. These are all the positives. The negatives are just how little all of this does for the plot of the episode. For starters, Jadeite creates the Yoma this episode, which means the amount of creepiness and disturbia has significantly decreased. What makes this disturbing in Classic is the realization that we don't actually know how long that Yoma has been pretending to be Naru's mom. It's clear that before the episode, she was in disguise as Naru's mom, but for how long is what's unsettling. Just how many days before this first episode did Naru have a demonic imposter posing as her mother and draining people of their life force? We know how long the sale at Osa-P has been going on, but we don't know how long the Yoma needed to set up this plot, nor if she chose to search the store's inventory to find the Phantom Silver Crystal first. So really, we don't know how long it's been. 2 days? 3? A week? Where's Naru's real mother? Is she dead? We've got all these questions ruminating in our heads as we watch this reveal. For Crystal, we've got no mystery, very little sense of dread or creepiness, it's just barely above a flat line. Jadeite's personality is non-existent, and Queen Beru remains absent from the episode. Those are things we should know. We should have a hint of these characters, if nothing else. We should have some clue as to what their might and threat is to our protagonists. But in Crystal, we have a random guy in some random mountain temple and a random monster trying to get a random crystal for their ambiguous master. We have no sense of hierarchy, no sense of scale, no sense of power, nothing. And the reveal of Naru's mom being an imposter is completely sabotaged because we see the clothes of the Yoma matches her clothes. So obviously that's the monster. Whereas in Classic, we get the reveal when the Yoma in disguise telepathically communicates with Jadeite, and their energy is being gathered by him in a secret location. And due to the Yoma's fantastic acting skills, Naru is none the wiser, which adds to the creepy and disturbing nature of this whole thing. But in Crystal, Naru's caught on to the monster a bit, asking what happened to her mom.
Embarrassing!
In some ways, I'll say that this scene is better than the Classic scene, but in the most meaningful and narratively important ways, it's still inferior to the Classic scene. Plus, we have some uninspired, flat direction, music, and designs. This looks like basic bitch anime crap. It doesn't look like someone with a distinct style, flair, or purpose made this. It looks horribly generic and boring, and in a show as bombastic and stylish and iconic as Sailor Moon, that's inexcusable. Look at how eerie and striking the Dark Kingdom looks in the Classic anime. You get a clear sense of style and mood with these few shots and this distinctly ominous and sinister music. This is stylish, this is iconic, this is distinctive and memorable. This is lame, basic, and generic. Get an original style, you anus tarts. Not to mention, look at how the characters in the Dark Kingdom faction is portrayed in these two scenes. Classic shows us an army of demons and monsters at the beck and call of this mysterious and powerful queen, who's talking about draining humans of their life force for an even greater evil that she serves. The Yoma have been out in the world looking for this powerful item, the Phantom Silver Crystal, giving more credence to the creep factor of imposter Naru's mom. Jadeite appears in a cloud of fire to beg Queen Beru to allow him to take charge of this situation, telling her that he's already gotten a jump on his project and his minions already been gathering energy off screen. That's how competent and clever Jadeite is. That's how much initiative he has to this cause. That's not a lot of character work, and it's not exactly phenomenal in terms of writing, but it's better than nothing at all. So even when Crystal is at its best, it's still not touching classic on its off day. Another significant indictment for Crystal. But don't worry, Crystal stans, I'm sure we'll get a scene that proves me wrong. Just give it a minute. It's not like classic is firing on all cylinders right out of the gate. I'm sure you'll be vindicated any minute now.
愚かな人間ども。我らが大いなる支配者にエナジーの全てを捧げるがよい。
集まってくる。宝石の輝きに魅せられた愚かな人間どものエナジー。クイーンベリル様もさぞかしお喜びになるであろう。モルガよ、さらに多くのエナジーを集めよう。
はい。あら、おかえりなるちゃん。
That's just disturbing. The Yomamorga has stolen the face of Naru's mom, and she's perfectly fooling everyone. That is just creepy. There's another horror element for you. Besides that very disturbing fact though, there's a nice bit of world building going on here. These customers are acting like real life customers. They're highly interested in a good deal, they're pushy, selfish, rude, goofy, everything that real life retail customers are. It's little details like this that make the world feel like a believable world. A world that is beyond the main characters and doesn't revolve around them. That's always good to see, and this show has a lot of that. Also, we get to see more of Naru and Usagi's relationship. They have this goofy familiarity that you'd expect from real life best friends. They seem like genuine friends, and you'd think that's an obvious thing for a story to have, but this is surprisingly difficult to master. Take note of friends in other stories that have to tell each other / the audience how close they are as an introduction. Naru and Usagi have shown their closeness. Naru telling Usagi to be strong before she shows her parents her terrible grade is another example of their friendship. It's fast, it's natural, and it's kinda funny. Perfect execution. Let's see how Crystal fares. So we've got another immediate downgrade with Osa-P's bland and generic look and this unnecessary window shopping bit. What is this? Why are we taking time to point out what jewels are in the display and that these aren't on sale? Is there a point to that? Is that gonna come back later in the story? Does it help flesh out the characters in the world? Is it at least a funny or a humorous moment to provide some levity? Well, no to all of those questions. So it's simply just a waste of time. Excellent. You know what would have been good? Instead of this being a useless aside, it could be used to show how far the Yoma has gone to entice as many people as possible. If the most expensive jewelry in the store is part of this 95% off sale, and that's the first thing people see when they walk past, that's gonna draw a serious crowd, which is exactly what the Yoma and Jadeite want. Plus, it can help support Naru's comment about her mother, because this stuff shouldn't be on sale. It's supposed to be really expensive so they can turn a profit. At this point, she's practically giving all of their stuff away. At this rate, they'll be out of business by the end of the month. Something like that can cast a shadow over this seemingly wonderful and innocent moment. which works with the reveal later in the episode. But then my brain starts chewing on things again. We're shown Jadeite summoning the Yoma right after Usagi meets Luna in the morning, and Naru suggests everyone come to Osa-P that same day after school because of the crazy sales the Yoma has implemented. So my question is, when did this scene happen really? Because how would Naru know about the sales in school on the day that the Yoma began impersonating her mom? Did the Yoma text her during lunch? Why? And why is she gathering energy through the jewelry if her mission was to find the phantom silver crystal? Why is she doing this energy sucking plot? Did the writers forget to set that up? Wouldn't she want to search the jewelry store's inventory personally to make sure she doesn't accidentally sell off the phantom silver crystal without realizing it? And why has she specified young energy? Aren't adults the more likely patrons of a jewelry store? You know, people who can actually buy jewelry? Old women with expensive tastes, well-off husbands trying to give their wives something nice for an anniversary or a birthday, men looking to propose to their girlfriends. All of these people make up the customer base of jewelry stores. This makes no sense. Would the Yoma deny the regular customers from buying the cheap jewelry in favor of the young energy? Really? I don't imagine Jadeite would appreciate that distinction, especially considering he asked for the phantom silver crystal. Is this the crowd that 95% off jewelry brought in? This isn't a crowd. This isn't a packed store. This is a regular day at JCPenney. There's only 17 people, including these two random girls that tagged along with Naru and Usagi. That doesn't constitute the description of crowded woman. And look at these people. They aren't people. No one's trying anything on. No one's looking in a mirror. No one's fighting over a particular piece. There's nothing interesting happening here. And then Usagi just leaves. Why? She doesn't say bye to her best friend, she just dips? Why? And I mean, the Yoma said she'd give Naru's friends a special discount on top of the 95% discount. We're talking 99% off, girl. Do you realize how cheap that is? Does Usagi not have a dime to her name? Well, no. As we'll see in the next scene, she's got money to go to the arcade. And apparently she's always got money to go to the arcade. So God, there's just so much dumbassery in this freaking scene when Classic avoids all of it. All of this retardation is dealt with much more naturally. People are acting like people. There's no distinction made between young energy and old energy. There's an actual crowd of people that our protagonists have to fight their way out of. The Yoma reveal is better handled. Jadeite approves of her methods. There's comedy and excitement that make the scene entertaining. When people hear how cheap a piece of jewelry is, they fight for it and shove Usagi and Naru out of the way. Usagi explains why she can't buy the jewelry, which further characterizes her and develops her relationship with Naru. And it's all done with style, flair, and energy. This is wonderful. This is painful. Moving on.
もう少し勉強しとけばな。
痛いじゃないか、お団子頭。
ごめんなさい。
30点。もっと勉強しろ、お団子頭。
余計なお世話よ。ピーって。なんだってのよ、まったくもう。変なやつ。
Alright, I have to bring in Crystal to compare again because Crystal's version of this scene is so much worse than Classic's version. First off, Crystal has Mamoru dressed in a tuxedo. Like, I know everyone knows that he's Tuxedo Kamen, but seriously, you're not even gonna try to obscure that fact a little bit? This is so messed up because Sailor Moon ends up seeing Tuxedo Kamen without his hat. So Mamoru looks exactly like Tuxedo Kamen happen right in his first appearance, which makes Usagi not knowing his identity that much more unbelievable. It's already unreasonable, but this makes it downright impossible for her to not recognize him. It's just a stupid choice that highlights one of the worst aspects of the series. Crystal also decides to make Mamoru a tall twink for some reason, which not only makes him look unimpressive, but also makes him seem creepier, at least to me. It certainly doesn't fit his alter ego Tuxedo Kamen, someone who is supposed to be at peak human condition, to be able to keep up with the superpowered Sailor Senshi and the various monsters of the week. The fact of the matter is, this guy doesn't even look like he could handle a group of normal guys, let alone the supernatural beings he faces regularly. I prefer the athletic build of Classic far more. Makes him look a lot more formidable, ideal, and believable. But by far, the worst part of Crystal's scene is the love at first sight cliche.
Oh, whoops. Whoopsie.
痛いじゃないか、単コブ頭。俺にまで単コブ作る気か?
Oh, whoops. Whoopsie.
This cliche is so overdone and poorly established. I can't believe this was left in. Do you realize how horrible an excuse this cliche is? This pathetic excuse for a story beat brings down the quality of every story that uses it and is an immersion-breaking insult to the audience. Nothing about this is salvageable. Nothing about this is excusable. This is unequivocally bad storytelling. And that's not all. What makes this even worse, what is too terrible to ignore, is the fact that when Usagi runs away, she tells the audience point blank, "Ooh, my heart's going doki doki. Is this love I'm a feeling?" I can't. Just, why? That's the one thing that makes this even worse. Crystal makes both of them inexplicably attracted to each other, but they don't admit their feelings because, I don't know, plot? It goes out of its way to point out how flustered and smitten that Usagi is with Mamoru every single time they're on screen together. It's not believable and it's not subtle at all. Crystal takes out all of the work and just slaps a "It's Fate" tag across them and expects the audience to care.
You're kidding. That ending came out of nowhere.
Yeah, don't you know anything about
subtlety?
Just because you say it's fate doesn't make us give a crap about it, writers. In fact, it makes us definitely not care. If they're fated to be together, then it defeats the purpose of Motoki and Usagi not talking to Mamoru as soon as she meets him. We no longer care because you're telling us no matter what, Usagi and Mamoru are going to be crazy in love by the end of the story because you, the creator, said so and no other reason. That's not how you get people invested in a romance, and the writers should know that. Classic fixes all of these problems in efficient and creative ways. It takes Mamoru out of a tuxedo, it beefs him up just enough to make him look believable and more attractive, and it cans the love at first sight crap. Usagi and Mamoru genuinely don't like each other here. They are not friends. They do not have an inexplicable attraction to each other. They don't have anything in common yet. They're just people that get on each other's nerves and can't seem to stay out of each other's lives. Now, her turning around in this scene lets us know that Mamoru stood out to her in some way. Whether it was positive or negative, he made an impression, and it was not a romantic impression. She looked back at him and his attention was off of her and on the jewelry store. He was odd to her, something about him stuck, but she did not think, "My heart's a pounding, could this be love I'm feeling?" She took a moment of silence to analyze him and she decided that he's a weirdo and kept it moving. That makes sense. He is a weirdo. Classic is subtle, careful, slowly building their relationship over many interactions, not slapping "it's fate" across the audience's face every scene we get of them. And it works so well. I've mentioned it before and I'm gonna mention it again. I love the way their relationship develops over the season, and I look forward to getting into it later. The last thing that Crystal falls on its face with is making Mamoru tell the audience what his motivation is. Again. This is lazy, bottom-of-the-barrel writing, and it does nothing but hurt the story. Classic does the obviously better choice of keeping Mamoru silent, allowing the audience to interpret what his motivation is. It's so painfully simple, but astronomically better. It's insane. Crystal is so freaking bad, you guys. It's unreal. Also, is it filler when they cut stuff from the source material, or is that...
Ah, Sailor V? もうゲームになっちゃってるの。ああ、いいな。セーラー V ちゃんなんてさ、テストも関係ないし、悪者退治なんてスカッとしそうだし。それに比べて私はこんなテスト持って帰りたくない
月のうさぎ、とうとう見つけたわよ。
Surprisingly, this scene has some things going on under the surface. But let's cover the obvious first. This is clearly foreshadowing of Usagi about to awaken as Sailor Moon later in the episode, and also more world building that solidifies Sailor V as a cultural icon. Luna's reveal is played up for maximum effect, leaving the audience wanting more. Oh my god, she can talk! And she's been looking for Usagi. What does this mean? That kind of thing. Usagi crying and resigning herself to head home is hilarious. I love her little sniffs. Underneath the surface, Usagi's lines about Sailor V are very interesting. She mentions not having to worry about tests and catching bad guys would feel good. These lines show us the fatal flaw that is at the core of her character. Irresponsibility. She views Sailor V, representing the Sailor Senshi life and becoming an adult, as an escape from responsibility. And this is detrimental to her growth, which is why we see it here in the first episode. This will be the thing she grapples with and one of the central themes of the series. Whether intentional or not, I think it's interesting that after Usagi says everything she says about being a Sailor Senshi, Luna emerges from her hiding spot a little. Now you can interpret this in a few ways. She could be a little shocked or intrigued that Usagi is showing interest in becoming a Sailor Senshi. She could be displeased that Usagi is equating the Sailor Senshi life with escaping responsibility, which can function as foreshadowing of her role throughout the series as the character that routinely advises, practically bullies, Usagi into handling her responsibilities. Maybe she just so happens to come out of her hiding spot at this moment and it doesn't mean anything. I'm partial to the first two interpretations myself. I think that fits with the narrative of the series best. And now, a word from our sponsor. Me. It's me, I'm the sponsor. Oh, hello, didn't see you there. Probably has something to do with me being a pre-recorded message, but nonetheless, I'm glad you're here so I can share a shocking revelation with you. Did you know that money can, in fact, be exchanged for goods and services? Yeah, I know, that's crazy, but it's true. Money makes my life easier, and when life is easy, I have time to make content like this video you're currently watching. And since you're already this far invested in the video, maybe you'd be interested to know how you, yes you, can continue to make this channel thrive and keep this kind of content coming. Well, you're in luck, my friends, cause there are numerous ways to donate to the channel and help your old pal SAJ-Man out. All you gotta do is check the description for links to my Patreon, Ko-fi, CashApp, and PayPal to donate. There's no paywalls, no tiers, no hassle. Just donate whatever you're comfortable with and voila, you will have done your part in securing this channel's future and earned my undying appreciation in one masterful stroke. Well done, dear viewer. Well done.
Come on, man! That's too easy!
So, if you've enjoyed any part of my content, consider supporting the channel through the links in the description. Doing so will keep me motivated and afford me the time I need to work on the content you enjoy. No pressure though. In conclusion, if you like my content, you can give me money, then I'll make more content faster, and everybody wins. Sound good? Sound good to me. Alright, that's it. See you next video. Okay, thanks, bye!